Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome to a new reaction, and, well, we finally know how Deltarune connects to Undertale by Underlab. Now, Underlab was one of those channels I had kind of forgotten I was subscribed to, but they were, back, when Undertale was still new, they were pretty much the, YouTube channel I watched concerning all sorts of, Undertale theorizing long before any hint of Deltarune coming out was even a thing. But then they sort of stopped. Now that was because apparently they're working on their own game, and they're still apparently working on it. But once Deltarune chapters 3 and 4 came out, they came out with like how many new videos? It was like there seemed to be like at least like 2 or 3 of them a day. So yeah, there was a bunch of them. There was several of them about like with specific battles. And then there was one about the Roaring Knight's true identity, and then there's this one, and there's 2 ones after this one. Like actually one of them, 10 darkest moments in Deltarune, that came out 2 days ago. So yeah, it was one of these channels that I haven't watched in so long. And then they just come out with a whole bunch of new videos, and honestly, I'm curious as to what you guys think of. So after I record this, I'm not going to record another one of their reactions until afterwards and see what you guys think of and how well the videos do. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those, yeah, it's one of those things that people have like theorized and tried to figure out, like, what is the connection between Undertale and Deltarune? Like, is it simply like, oh, Undertale is an alternate reality and that's just it? Like, there's a couple of characters, there's like, there's several similar characters, but they've lived different lives and stuff like that. Or, like, I remember I saw one where, like, Undertale is actually, like, a dark world because, dark. And, like, a lot of those theories kind of died down, so I'm wondering, because, like, thinking back to when I played chapters 3 and 4, I can't think of anything specifically in them that really, pointed out a solid connection between Undertale and Deltarune, besides the fact that, the robes we see Toriel wear in Undertale, she wears again in Deltarune, but they're like religious choir robes that she wears when she's singing in church. And like, so other than that, I don't know what this connection, they could be talking about could possibly even be. But yeah, again, I want to get into this because, again, I haven't watched an Underlab video in so long. This is going to, even like withstanding that this is brand new, this is going to be pure nostalgia for me. But yeah, we should probably get this thing started. So yeah, of course, as always, original videos linked in the description. If you haven't seen it yet for some reason, corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And if you like this video or any other video that I make, I'd very much appreciate it if you gave the video a like and subscribe to my channel, because because my main goal for this year was to hit 5,000 subscribers, and at the current rate, I am honestly so close, and it's, it's thanks to every single one of you that thinks my channel's worth subscribing to that, I'm this close already. But yeah, with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Hello and welcome back to Underlab. Quite possibly the biggest mystery in both Deltarune and Undertale is how the games connect. We've been dropped plenty of red herrings about them actually being 2 completely separate games, but this simply isn't true. The games reference one another in cryptic ways, creating a mystery for us to decode. Now, I'll admit a lot of this video may be speculative, and will either be proven or disproven by the later chapters of Deltarune. We simply don't have all the pieces of the puzzle yet. Keep watching though, as this video possibly has the answers to the biggest mysteries in both games.
I don't care. Also, a nice font.
In Deltarune Chapter 4, we find Sans standing in front of what appears to be a shop or something. He says the door behind him is unlocked, that it's always been both closed and open, or clopen. Very funny, Sans. Clearly, this is just a skeleton pulling our strings.
Or is it?
Or it's actually proof that the entirety of Deltarune is taking place within a separate dimension to Undertale, that the door between worlds is in a quantum state of both existing and not existing, that at any moment our realities could merge. Up becomes down, left becomes right, cats and dogs living together. I'm only half joking. Not many games have conspiracies so deep within their lore that you're not even sure the world you're exploring is supposed to be real, but Deltarune is definitely one such game. Beware the man from the other world. Those were the words the river person uttered to us within Undertale. Back then, it didn't make much sense.
Beware the man from another world. When did he say that? Because I remember, beware the man who speaks in hands. I don't remember that one.
But generally the consensus was that they were referring to Gaster, the mysterious scientist only referenced in the first game, unable to be found without modifying the game files. We know so very little about him, but the one record he left behind was this. Entry 17. Dark, darker yet darker. The darkness keeps growing. This next experiment seems very, very interesting. Darkness was hardly a theme within Undertale. Of course, almost the entirety of Deltarune takes place within a place called the Dark World. There's no doubt in my mind now that Gaster's experiment concluded in the creation of a dark fountain, the gateways to darkness featured throughout Deltarune. But we never see a dark fountain in Undertale. There isn't even a single reference to these dark worlds.
I mean, okay, I can't remember who first said it, but I do remember this one theory that recently came up that potentially the core was, a dark fountain, or was harnessing a dark fountain or something like that. It was really weird.
Nor many of the concepts introduced in Deltarune. It'd be easy to dismiss them as just being something new for Undertale's sequel. But then, why does this extremely explicit reference to darkness exist within the first game? Within Deltarune, a mysterious bunker exists at the southern end of town. It isn't entirely clear what's past those doors, but we can make a pretty solid guess. At the end of Chapter 3 we see the Roaring Knight, our recurring foe, who along with Chris is going about opening dark fountains, fleeing into the bunker. Said bunker also plays Gaster's theme, Slow Down when we get close to it. This can surely be no coincidence. The entity responsible for opening dark fountains in Deltarune just so happens to go where Gaster presumably is. Gaster, the former head scientist from Undertale, who performed an experiment that filled the room he and his observers were in darkness. He could very well be responsible for the divide between Deltarune and Undertale. We need to pause for a moment to consider this. It's tempting to say the two games aren't necessarily connected, but I believe any indication Toby has given us of that is a red herring.
You know what? Would it be cool, or can you imagine if when we finally get into the bunker, it literally, you walk in, Chris and Susie fall, and then they end up in the ruins, and then it's just Delta Traveler. Oh god, if that ended up being true, if that ended up happening, I have trouble thinking about whether that would be really cool or a bit of a cop-out. It would really depend on how the game had kind of shaped up until that point.
It would just be a bit too bizarre. So many recurring characters from Undertale, so many callbacks and nods to it, hinting at a greater connection. It's clear Deltarune is supposed to be a little more than a conventional sequel, and may even be a prequel. To explain why this is possible, we have to return to Undertale and look at Sans workshop, one of the biggest secrets in the entire game. There's some really weird stuff in here that even now is difficult to explain, but Deltarune has provided some very real possibilities. Most notably, there's a broken machine, a badge, and a photo album containing 3 potential images. One of Sans with people we don't recognise, one of him with us and the other characters of Undertale, and most mysterious of all, a drawing of 3 friends with the words, "Don't forget." This was speculated on forever during Undertale's run, and many suggestions were made, such as the 3 friends potentially being Sans, Gaster, and Papyrus. However, it's very apparent now that these 3 friends are no doubt Chris, Rousey, and Susie. Just, why is Sans writing "Don't forget" next to his drawing of them? What horrible and terrible fate befell the protagonists of Deltarune, or at least separated Sans from them to the point that he felt he might one day forget them?
Gotta think about that, because, again, I know there's the whole theory that, Sans is from Deltarune and then escaped to Undertale through, whatever machine is in the basement or whatever. And I have to wonder, we've kind of, at the end of Chapter 4, there's the whole, prophecy that Susie smashes and stuff like that. And I really have to, considering one of the theories about, what that was on that last section of the prophecy was that seemingly maybe someone of the Fun Gang or somebody related had to die, whether it's Susie, Chris, Rousey, whoever, or was... And I had theorized that, like, near the end of the game, the roaring is going to start, and then, like, the machine is sort of like, is like Sans and Papyrus is sort of like the equivalent to a dimensional lifeboat or something like that. So many things are so confusing. Honestly.
This heavily implies that Sans is originally from Deltarune's world rather than Undertale's, and the broken machine in the corner of the room could very well be the dimensional splitting device he used to get there.
And again, you know, there is the whole thing about, in Undertale, we never see any monsters bleed. When we kill them, it's like they turn into dust. And yet Sans, when you defeat him, before he turns into dust, or at least before we think he turns into dust, because we do hear the sound effect but don't actually see it, we see him bleed, even though, you know, he's a literal skeleton. And then, again, like the whole thing, the fact that Susie bleeds, we see her bleeding when she punches the stained glass window with the last part of the prophecy in Chapter 4. Again, like, either monsters in Deltarune are fundamentally different from the monsters in Undertale, which might be why we don't see any of the monsters in Deltarune use magic outside of, you know, the Dark Worlds, and they can bleed, or there's just a fundamental part of monster biology that we just are not aware of.
Potentially related to Gaster's discovery of the Dark Fountains. Remember, we're explicitly told during Undertale that Papyrus and Sans just showed up one day. That's a weird detail that stuck with me for a long time. They must have come from somewhere, right? At one point in time, Toby roleplayed as the characters from Undertale answering questions. Papyrus mentions that the place he and Sans come from had green grass. There's pretty much nowhere in Undertale with green grass. At least not enough for there to be an entire town on it.
Yeah.
But there is in Deltarune. So, how exactly does this all tie together? Once more returning to Undertale, we have the mystery of Goner Kid, a mysterious grayscale NPC that only appears in Undertale depending on our quote-unquote fun value. This strangely melancholic kid posits a disturbing philosophical question. What if a world existed the same as ours, but the only difference was that we didn't exist? Said world continues on fine without us. We were never important. This terrifying and cryptic statement could only be speculated on prior to the release of Deltarune, but with it I believe we may potentially have an answer to what Goner Kid is talking about. It is said Gaster fell into his creation and was splintered across time and space. Said creation seems to have been a dark fountain. Dark fountains lead to dark worlds, meaning did Gaster create one of the realities we find ourselves in? Deltarune could very well be the dark world equivalent of Undertale, or even more crazy, Undertale may be the dark world of Deltarune. The residents of Hometown have it relatively easy compared to their counterparts in Undertale, living mostly peacefully upon the surface.
Yeah, peaceful, like completely normal surface-dwelling lives, having never heard of any form of prophecy, or seemingly never had, you know, any time in the past where, you know, monsters were imprisoned underground for centuries or millennia, depending.
Whereas those in Undertale were trapped underground for centuries, their king forced to commit atrocities in a bid to be free, the royal scientist Alphys committing perversions of science in an attempt to understand the soul. It doesn't take much to argue that Undertale is like a dark distortion of Chris's world, very much alike to how the Dark World twists the mundane in Deltarune. It's also rather interesting how the recurring characters in Undertale seem to be living more successful, more fantastical lives. With Asgore as a king rather than tending a flower shop, Alphys as the royal scientist rather than a teacher, Undyne as a powerful captain and knight. Isn't this a lot like how Chris and Susie don new clothes and become more adventurous versions of themselves in the Dark World?
Yeah.
Now, I realise there's a few holes in this idea. The Dark Fountains tend to affect smaller areas in Deltarune, and this idea suggests that an entire new world was created in the form of Undertale. But who says that Gaster's experiment was like any other? Pushing the boundaries of science, what if the darkness he brought into the world was so much as to shatter reality itself and rewrite the world as Chris understands it?
I mean, again, there is the real possibility, again, as I said before, that is when you step into the, you know, into the shelter at the south of town, that you step in, you fall, like you did in Chapter 1 into Castletown, but instead of falling into Castletown, you fall into the ruins. So, you never know, it could be some really weirdness going on there. And then you never know, maybe the roaring happens, people run to the bunker for safety, they fall into that dark world, and then, hey, what do you know? It's Undertale, and now they were trapped underground.
Chris, the same character who's nowhere to be seen in Undertale, not even referenced. Like Goner Kid warned us, it's a world without us, a world where we don't exist. It may not be the Dark Fountains themselves that do this, but something with the ability to harness their power to affect the world like nothing else ever could. A complete rewrite of reality and history, perhaps completely accidentally, given how Gaster supposedly fell into his own creation. With so many strange parallels existing between the two games, I'm really not buying the idea that these two worlds just happen to contain the same characters.
I mean, it could be also the fact that they were created by the same person, so you never know. I mean, granted, I highly doubt that, the reason there are so many similarities is because Toby was lazy. Actually, at this point, all the similarities that we've seen, I'm pretty sure it's taking more effort to include them than it would be to not.
Something occurred. Whether it already has while playing Deltarune, or will towards the end of the game, it isn't clear yet. At some point, it's clear that Sans made the leap between the two worlds, finally explaining his strange mannerisms and aloofness from the first game. Should he truly be from Deltarune, not Undertale, and remembers everyone he's lost, it'd explain his nonchalance and inaction throughout Undertale, only bothering to attack us on the genocide route despite his incredible speed and power. Could you bring yourself to fight for a doomed cause, knowing your entire world can be pulled out from under your feet at any moment? We also can't forget Rousey. Rousey is a truly mysterious individual, seemingly only existing in the Dark World. It's tempting to think that they're surely Asriel, and they are. Almost. It's a lot like how the characters in Undertale are technically their counterparts in Deltarune, but different, altered. Rousey may very well have gone through this process before, with or without Gaster's experiment, and now lingers behind in the Dark World, alone and forgotten. He has witnessed what's about to happen before, thus his cryptic knowledge of the prophecy, something he struggles to convey to us due to how terrible it truly is. It's his way of coping, of dealing with the idea that you and your world can be replaced, and continue on as if you never existed.
I mean, that is sort of similar to Cammy Boy G's Rousey theory that he did just before chapters 3 and 4 came out, about the whole thing that, Rousey isn't so much a goner, that Rousey isn't a darkener but a goner, and that they're just the most recent goner Gasters created to help the prophecy along or go through, experiment scientists and all that.
Rousey is now Asriel, Chris is now Frisk. Each time the process happens, things change, people are left behind. What if, instead of tending to 6 different coloured flowers, Asuka was forced to keep 6 different coloured souls? What if the Holiday family never existed, and in their place was a strange and distorted amalgam? Yet, certain things remain the same. Asuka and Toriel still argue and fight. The Deltarune remains the symbol of monster kind, and in some ways, things even improve. Love blossoms, even flourishes. In some way, things are more like how they should be, but in others, they're more far removed than can be imagined. Rousey, Chris and Susie, and everyone else, they're still there, just left behind as their world slowly rots. All we can do is what Sans wrote down in that binder of his, and try to not forget them. Thanks for watching, everyone. What a dark and disturbing possibility. Bridging the two games has been fascinating, and if you enjoyed this video, please do like and share it. Remember, I'm still hard at work on my own game, and a free demo will be available in a few months.
Oh,
I hope you enjoyed
wonderful.
the video, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, God, honestly, I've said it before that, I mean, just what I said earlier, like the idea that potentially, oh, what if you fell into a dark world and it was just Deltarune, and then we're just playing Delta Traveler? Like, what if Toby became, lost his mind and literally just made the meme become real? Oh, God. Honestly, I don't... Again, I'm trying to think, if that actually came to pass, that you fell into the shelter dark world and it was just the ruins from Undertale. I have a feeling that half the fandom would explode and the other half would implode if that was to happen. Because, I mean, thinking about it, you have the 3 symbols on the door, the holiday, and the police badge, and the Deltarune. Now, out of all 3 of these, only one of them really doesn't fit because we don't see any of the holidays. So maybe the reason we don't see them in Undertale is because they didn't get into the bunker in time when the roaring happened. Who knows? Oh, God, honestly, it's one of those things. I mean, granted, there was a lot of surprises in chapters 3 and 4 with just how up front the chapters were with some information, like the fact, like Rousey just confirms that he is a Darkener, and that they are just random objects and basically imaginary friends, and that Rousey knows a lot more about the prophecy that he's been letting on, and he's been lying through omission and stuff like that. So stranger things have happened, and they could still happen. You never know. Ah, God, but yeah, that's definitely going to be it for now. So yeah, if you like this video and want me to see more, and want me to watch the rest of the new Underlab videos that they've put out, let me know in the comments. But yeah, with all that out of the way, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.